Mr. President, I move to proceed to legislative session.
Question is on the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion is agreed to.
I move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar 635, sorry.
Question is on the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, the Judiciary, Holly A. Thomas of California to be United States Circuit Judge for the Ninth Circuit.
I ask consent. I send a cloture motion to the desk.
The clerk will report.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close the debate on the nomination of Executive Calendar Number 635, Holly A. Thomas of California, to be United States Circuit Judge for the Ninth Circuit, signed by 17 senators, as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
That's it. I note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.
Majority Leader.
I ask unanimous consent the quorum be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Now, Mr. President, on nominations. In a few moments, we're going to begin confirming a slew of nominees to serve in the Biden administration that up till now have been needlessly obstructed by a handful, just a handful, of Senate Republicans. But under the rules, they can do that. Confirming these nominees is one of the most basic constitutional responsibilities of the U.S. Senate. It's bigger than the interests of any one senator. It's about ensuring our government is able to effectively serve the American people here at home and advance the American interests overseas. For decades, both sides have understood that each president, regardless of party, deserves to have their administration filled. And we've worked together to make that happen, particularly for non-controversial and less senior nominees. But today's blockade is a beast of a different nature. Right now, over 150 of President Biden's nominees are stalled by a handful of Republican senators who have hijacked the rules of the Senate for no other reason than obstruction for its own sake. Many received bipartisan support in committee. And these aren't low-priority nominees, whatever that means. Many of these men and women would deal with matters of diplomacy and national security. That's what Republicans are blocking. Some of them would help implement the bipartisan infrastructure bill. That's what Republicans are blocking. From fighting inflation to relieving supply chains to advancing U.S. national security, many of the men and women who are nominated would be the ones who would actually do this work. Let me repeat that. For all the howling and hollering we hear from Republicans about inflation, national security, and economic recovery, they're blocking the very same people whose jobs it would be to tackle these issues. It's Alice in Wonderland logic. There's no justification for their delay, none. Listening to the other side twist themselves into pretzels, it's clear that their game is simple, cynical, self-interested obstruction. And I thank my colleagues on this side of the aisle for coming to the floor day after day to shine a spotlight on the real-world impact of Republican obstruction. This is the consequence of Republican obstruction. We're going to keep voting in this chamber as we work to get these nominees confirmed. Now on Build Back Better. Mr. President, Senate Democrats are working to pass Build Back Better and send it to the President's desk as soon as possible so we can strengthen the middle class, create opportunity in the 21st century, and fight the climate crisis. Yesterday, I had a good discussion with the President and the Speaker where we talked about ongoing negotiations on finalizing the Build Back Better Act so we can pass it through the Senate. The President requested more time to continue his negotiations, and so we will keep working with him, hand in hand, to bring this bill over the finish line and deliver on these much-needed provisions. At its core, Build Back Better is about making the greatest investment in the American people that we have seen in generations. It's about building new ladders to help people climb into the middle class and providing them stability to thrive in the middle class once they get there. That means lowering the cost of prescription drugs, extending the child tax credit, making child care more affordable for tens of millions of families, expanding housing, early education, and affordable health care. And it means taking unprecedented steps to fight climate change and lay the groundwork for greater action in the future. These are all things that the American people want. These are things Democrats are fighting to secure. And it cannot be forgotten that not a single Republican, not one, has joined us in making them happen. They're opposed to making child care more affordable. They're opposed to fighting the climate crisis. And they're possibly even considering fighting provisions like making drugs like insulin more affordable. If Republicans won't fight to help everyday Americans afford the basics, Democrats will. We're going to keep working to achieve our goal of passing Build Back Better into law. On voting rights, the fight to protect voting rights and restore the United States Senate is moving forward. Yesterday, I continued to have detailed discussions with many of my colleagues about how we're going to reach our goal of passing voting rights to ensure it takes effect before Americans return to the polls in the next election, so it can affect those 2022 elections, which Republican legislators are so jaundicing. Last night, a number of my colleagues and I met with Marty Paone, a Senate rules expert who worked under several previous majority leaders, including Robert C. Byrd, about how we can restore the Senate so it can work the way our founders intended, the way it has functioned for generations before the Republican gridlock of the past decade or so. Just now I came from a meeting where both Marty Paone and Marty Gold, one a Democrat, one a Republican, counsel discussing how we can move forward on these issues, making the Senate work and getting voting rights done. Later today, Marty will join the Senate Democrats at our caucus meeting to continue this very important conversation. Marty Paone will. We've tried all year long to get Republicans to join us on a bipartisan effort to protect our democracy, but they've resisted and they have blocked the Senate from having so much as a debate on this issue. A debate, not even a debate. 4 votes. On 3 of them, every Republican voted not even to go forward and debate, and on the 4th vote, only 1. Of course, under the rules of the Senate, as they're presently constituted, you need 10. Voting rights should not be a partisan issue. Both parties are better off if our democracy is strong and safeguarded against the Republican assaults playing out at the state level. The voting restrictions we are seeing passed in Republican-dominated state legislatures are the most egregious assaults on voting rights since the days of Jim Crow, and they are being passed entirely on a party line basis. Zero bipartisanship from these state state legislator Republicans. And here in the Senate, we're going to keep at it, because just because Republicans will not join us does not mean Democrats will stop fighting on this issue. It's too important, and the fight continues. I yield the floor.